Hi everyone, Mrs. John here. We're going to continue with our Physics Unit 1, which is all about motion. And today's topic is going to be momentum. So when we are done with this, we want to be able to answer the question, how does a change in velocity or mass affect the momentum? Okay, so that's our goal here. So first we need to define momentum. So momentum in science is given the letter P. I know it seems like M would be a great choice, but M is taken with mass and meters. The capital M is taken with other terms, and so P is the term for momentum. So anytime you see the letter P, we're talking about momentum. Momentum's scientific definition is the product of an object's mass and velocity. And in math, when we use the word product, we're telling us that we need to multiply. So what the definition tells us is that momentum, P, is equal to the mass times the velocity, which is the equation that we see here. So just like speed and velocity, this is a 3-variable equation. And so we can use a triangle to solve for the different pieces. So in this case, P is our momentum. And in order to find the momentum, if we cover up our P, we're left with M and V next to each other. So we would take M times V. V, like we learned in our last unit, is velocity. And if we covered up the V, we're left with P over M. So that's P divided by M. And then M is going to be our mass. And again, if we use our triangle, we'll cover up the M, and we're left with P divided by V. Okay, so we can use that equation to solve for 3 different things: the momentum, the velocity, or the mass. Now let's take one more second to talk about the units, and then we're going to talk about what does momentum actually mean though. So velocity is going to be in meters per second. Our mass for these ones, if we're going to calculate, have to be in kilograms. And because in momentum we're multiplying our mass and our velocity, it has this weird unit of kilograms times meters per second. Okay, so it's kind of a weird unit. We haven't seen one that complicated yet. So we just did a bunch of speed and velocity calculations. So with momentum, instead of doing another 3-variable equation, we are going to look at what does momentum actually mean. So kind of the everyday definition of momentum is how difficult it is to stop a moving object. So when we are talking about momentum, it's harder to stop an object with more momentum. It's easier to stop an object with less momentum. And remember, there are 2 things that affect the momentum. So we want to know, how do you change the momentum of an object? If you're trying to stop an object, you want it to have the lowest amount of momentum. So how can you make that happen? So there are 2 ways to change the momentum of an object. First, you can change the velocity. To change the velocity, if you increase it, it will increase the momentum. So if we look at our equation, we are multiplying by velocity. So if you multiply by a bigger number, the answer is going to go up as well. So if we increase our velocity, our momentum will increase. They're directly related. If one goes up, the other one goes up. The opposite is true then. If one goes down, the other one also goes down. The second thing we can do is change the mass. So if we increase the mass, since we're multiplying by mass, if we multiply by a bigger number, our answer also goes up. So this is a direct relationship as well. They're directly related. So if we think of a scenario, I am just getting home and my family is so happy to see me. And they're all running at me to give me a hug, and I have to stop them with my arms. My 2-year-old, if he runs to me, he's pretty small. He's maybe like 25 pounds, and he doesn't run very fast. And he runs at me, and I can easily stop him because he has a pretty low mass, and he's not able to run very fast. My 4-year-old, he's pretty skinny, so he actually has a pretty small mass, but he is fast. So he runs at me with a lot of momentum and knocks me back just a little bit, but I'm able to stop him. Finally, my husband hasn't seen me all day. He's so excited, and he runs at me. He's a pretty big guy, so he has a high mass. He's running. He has a high velocity, and he knocks me right over because he had the most momentum. So those are the two variables that can affect our momentum, the velocity and the mass. So thinking about those two variables, and also that momentum is kind of how hard it is to stop an object, let's look at a few scenarios. So our first scenario is going to be which vehicle has more momentum. So we have a semi-truck here, and we've got a little red car. So if the semi-truck and the car are both driving 60 miles per hour south, so this is their velocity. The velocity is the same. Which one has more momentum? So the difference between a semi-truck and a car, if they're going the same velocity, has to be their mass. So the semi has more mass. So because it has a higher mass, it's also going to have a higher momentum. So which one has more momentum? The semi has more momentum. And then it's asking why. Because it has a higher mass. Okay? So if there's a stop sign ahead, who needs to apply their brakes first and why? Remember, you guys, that momentum is how difficult it is to stop a moving object. So if the semi has more momentum, that means it's going to be harder to stop. So who needs to put their brakes on first? The thing with more momentum. So the semi needs to apply their brakes first. Because it has more momentum and it's going to be harder to stop. So we did two things here. We talked about what affects the momentum. So why is the semi-truck higher in momentum? And then we also said, okay, now that we know it has more momentum, what does that mean in real life? It means it's going to be harder to stop and that it has to start braking before a car does. Can't slam its brakes on at the last minute. Okay, let's look at another example. So we're going bowling. We want to knock all of the bowling pins down with our bowling ball. Both balls have a mass of 5 kilograms. So we're using the same mass of ball. So the mass is the same. And one is rolled at a velocity of 5.3 meters per second. That's our blue ball here. And the other at a velocity of 7.5 meters per second. That's our green ball on the bottom. Which one has a greater momentum? Well, if one is going 5.3 meters per second and the other one is going 7.5 meters per second, I always try and throw the ball as hard as I can because it's going to knock down more pins. So, which one has a greater momentum? The green ball has more momentum because it's moving faster. Okay, so now we're going to apply this. What does that mean? Why do we care about momentum when we're bowling? If they hit the pins in the same spot, which one will knock down more pins and why? So we just said the green ball has more momentum. And remember, momentum talks about how hard it is to stop it. So when the blue ball hits the pins are going to slow it down. When the green ball hits the pins, it's going to be harder to slow it down and more are going to fall over. So if they hit the pins in the same spot, which one will knock down more pins? The green ball. Because it's harder to stop since it has more momentum. You guys, we use momentum in our daily lives, even when we don't think about it. It is something that we subconsciously think about on a regular basis. How fast are things coming at me? Is it a big thing or a small thing? So this is a concept that we use all the time. Okay, our last example here. Which ball has more momentum? Okay, so we're not bowling. We're playing pool here. If you need to hit a pool ball from the middle of the table to a corner pocket, should you hit the white ball hard or gently? So in pool, if you've never played it, the white ball is the ball that you can hit. So you hit the white ball and the goal is for it to bump into other balls and then for that ball to move. So if you want this ball here, this red and white ball, to go a far distance, do you need to hit that white ball with a little bit of force or do we need to hit it hard? Okay. So all the balls on the table are made of the same thing. So their mass is about the same. So the variable that we're looking at here is velocity. If I want that ball to go fast, I'm going to need to hit it hard. So I'm going to hit it hard. Okay, now I want to explain why. I'm going to use the words velocity and momentum. Okay, so if I want that white ball to hit into my white and red ball hard, I want it to fling it across the table, it needs to have a lot of momentum. So I'm going to say I want the white ball to have a lot of momentum. I want it to be difficult to stop. So I need to hit it hard so it moves with a large velocity. We want it to be moving fast. Okay, you guys. So you are going to use the concept of momentum this week to look at a couple of different scenarios and to explain some relationships. So always feel free to come back to this video. The notes with all of my writing are going to be posted as well so that you can look back at those. And if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact your teacher or to jump into our help sessions this week.